Hello everyone, welcome to the Aardvark Swift podcast. I'm your host Michael Rodby. With me today is Senior Recruiter Dave Moss, and we're talking to Matt Knott, Development Director of Nequinox. Hello Matt, how are you doing?
Morning guys, I'm good thanks. You?
Good. Yeah, thank you very much for joining us today. So let's get started then. Would you mind telling us a little bit about Nequinox and what you do there?
Sure. So we're a AAA game studio based in Manchester, registered developers for Nintendo, PlayStation, Xbox. We really were set up to push the boundaries of video game technology for all of our co-dev studio partners. We're a co-dev studio. We've worked on some pretty high profile console and PC games, Burnout Paradise, Crackdown 3 being a couple of those. We've begun to get a name as the sort of go-to studio for pushing the boundaries really. My job is to build the capacity and the capability of the studio, recruiting great people through people like you guys, and also building up the capability really, so that we are always improving on the kind of wide breadth of talent that we've got in the studio. We also are working on some of our own ideas as well, very, very early days, but we've got some pretty cool ideas. You know, we're gamers, we love games, we love making games. So inevitably, we've got our, some of our own ideas.
Very nice. You did mention a little bit that you're all about embracing new technology and stuff. Would you mind telling us a little bit about what is on the forefront of technology at Nequinox?
Absolutely. So we work on, I suppose, all engines. We are, although I guess primarily at the moment we're focused on Unreal Engine 4.5. Obviously with AAA, it's kind of the de facto engine at the moment that people are using. But we do work on custom engines too, and proprietary software that people bring to us. We have a kind of real depth of understanding around how engines are built. Stephen, who's our CTO, ran the ATG team at Sumo for several years, and as a result has so much experience in building engines. He knows what's good and what's bad. He knows how to make things work. We are also building some of our own technologies as well, which helps along with that. We are really pushing the boundaries of both the next gen, well, I suppose current gen consoles, but also the engines as well. We're really pushing hard on expanding. Well, actually we're doing things that they weren't really designed for right now. So we are really pushing the boundaries.
Matt, one thing what's really stood out for me since we started speaking is how quickly you've built your reputation. It's still a relatively new studio, but you're just going from strength to strength incredibly quickly. How have you managed that?
Yeah, well, I think there's probably three pillars to that. One is that we are focused on engineering. So at the moment we are very heavily biased towards an engineering team. This is not that common, I don't think. A lot of teams are quite a mixture of art and engineering and production. We have got a very heavy split in bias towards engineering. I think that's one of the big factors. We've got Stephen, who's leading that team, who, like I say, has years and years of experience. He's ex-Infograms, Gremlin. He's walked the walk for so many years that people have got a lot of confidence in us, and I think that's the other part. We give people a lot of confidence. We have a very specific way that we build relationships with co-dev partners. We're not in any rush. we can absolutely take our time and make sure that when we start working with them, it's the right time. I would say we don't work well with people that come to us with a 3-month. Oh, we've got this gig that, for 3 months. Have you got somebody? No, we don't have it. We don't have anybody just knocking about, just sitting on their hands at all. Everybody's on project, and we build teams. I think this is the third and probably most important pillar of what we do. We build teams with other studios, and we assimilate into that studio really well. That's not to say that we don't have Nequinox DNA, because I think that's absolutely vital that we push the boundaries. We talk to our co-dev partners about their games and how we can make them better, and how we can support the improvements they want to make.
But you also include them in the recruitment process as well.
We have done, yeah, we have done. We're happy to bring our co-dev partners into some of the recruitment process. Certainly for senior hires, it feels like that can be beneficial to everybody, because they get to meet some of the leads from the other company. Obviously, they have us in the background supporting them. We don't do that with everybody, but sometimes it feels more appropriate.
Yeah, I was going to say actually, because you mentioned about how one of your pillars is building teams and stuff, the recruitment process and getting the right people in that kind of line of work in a studio must be vital. So I was wondering what the recruitment process is like at Nequinox and what role you play in that.
Well, I'm kind of the lead recruiter because I have to be. We're still a small team. There's actually 21 as of the 6th of September. We'll be at 21. When I joined, we were at 6. So and that's about a year ago. So we have kind of increased capacity quite a lot, but we have also brought on one new co-dev partner, and we're about to bring on another. So these conversations have been ongoing for well over 6 months. When we start to speak to other studios about their games, it takes a long time to understand what people need, and for us to also build confidence that we can help them. This is not just about let's get another body in. We've rejected approaches from other studios because they're not right for us. Not just because we've got to find 5 guys straight away. Well, no, that's not something we do, because we can't just find 5 perfect people straight away. But what we can do is begin the process of searching for the people with the right values and the right sort of attitude. Skills can be taught. Admittedly, we need some skillful people. I'm not saying we don't want that, but actually it's the values and the attitude which are probably more important, more so than ever right now, because we can't just kind of hang out in the office and get to know each other. We have to work harder through screens to do that. And values and attitude, that's what we're hiring on. We're not hiring on necessarily skills. And
that's something what's always stood out when we've spoken. But in this climate and the demand, especially on the engineering side, so great. How are you finding the balance between hitting the values and finding people to fill the roles?
I think people really buy into what we're trying to do. So we have got, we're a small company. We're only 21, like I say, but we already have a champion for EDI. We already have somebody looking at mental health. It couldn't be more relevant right now, given what's happening over in the US. With one of the biggest companies in the world. Having people know that from the get-go, this is something that we are looking to be part of a inclusive, diverse, equal culture, and to have Hannah, who's been instrumental in getting things started. She's our champion for EDI, and she wrote the proposal for the Raise the Game pledge that we made. And these are things that we will work on delivering on over the next 12 months and beyond. So I think people have bought into the fact that we're looking at that now. I think people are buying into the fact that we've got some really cool games that we're working on. As a company, it was set up out of love for games, and also there's a bit of a family vibe there with Anthony and Stephen being father and son. So there are a number of unique selling points for Nequinox, I suppose, to candidates, and these are the things that I think perhaps are not available anywhere else.
You mentioned that you work primarily with AAA studios, but there are some smaller ones that you work with as well. I was wondering what the process is like for both or varying sizes of studios, and how that differentiates in how you work and how you sort of work alongside these studios.
It doesn't differentiate that much, actually. I'd say that the primarily good productions are about good producers and good production from both sides. So I'm pretty experienced in production on a wide variety of products, I'll grant you, and Hannah has a lot of experience in the interactive media world as well as TV. We're there to support the process, so bringing people in to work with on a particular initiative or feature, that's where we're very strong, where we own a feature. So if we can own a feature, we really, people get massive amounts of value from us. So one of the added values of working with us is that we get involved in the production, so we can support our co-dev partners. They've got another set of eyes, in fact. So what tends to happen is that if there are any issues or features that they're looking to work on, we'll support that process. A typical day at Nequinox, our guys will meet with our co-dev partners, and then they'll meet with us. So the value of working with Nequinox is not just that you've got people on the project, but actually you've got a whole knowledge base sitting next to you. So if you're working on a networking problem or a graphics problem, we've got in-house expertise that can help with that. It may not be, they may not be working on the project, but the value of having teammates sitting next to you that know about that stuff is invaluable. And that's why we have a Nequinox scrum every day. They don't just attend their own scrums and then we leave them to it. We also have a daily catch up, just to kind of have a cup of tea with each other and a biscuit, and a joke or a song or whatever it might be. But essentially, it's a way of catching up. But inevitably, people talk about work and talk about the challenges they're facing. And by having the resources there, Stephen as well. Stephen's part of that process, so Stephen's got a lot of knowledge. So that can all come to bear on, the more, advanced parts of what we're doing, where we're pushing the boundaries of the technologies. Everybody kind of is sort of thinking and processing things through as well.
I'm really interested to hear, Matt, because obviously you've had some quick success, and I suppose you can start thinking in long term now. Where do you see your Nequinox going? What's the dream?
I think we still continue to build a reputation, capability, capacity into the studio. I think co-dev is where we're at, right now. Look, I'd be lying if I was saying, every game studio has their own ambitions, right, to make games. Not just make other people's games, but to make their own. One day, I think that's going to be something we're really looking at. And I suppose one day is probably a bit cryptic. We are looking at it now.
Yeah, you started building teams, haven't you? Am I okay saying that? Or?
Yeah, no, we've recruited our Chief Creative Officer, Ian Deary, who's joined us from Sumo. He joined us 3 weeks ago. Ian's got BAFTAs under his belt. He's worked on Sackboy. He's worked on LBP. He's done some amazing stuff, and he's just the perfect foil for the company to start looking and investigating into what we can do with our ideas. And so that's super exciting. And I've seen some of the ideas that are coming out of it already, and they're pretty cool.
Is there anything you could tell us about the IP, or if there's been any studio restructure to do with that? Obviously, if you can't talk about it, that's completely fine.
We do have a couple of creative tech artists in the company who now are looked after by Ian. But we also, we've done some internal kind of ideation sessions where we've come up with some ideas. That's been quite fun. So I'd say not necessarily restructuring.
Now, to my bread and butter, Matt, recruitment. processes. Talk to us about your recruitment process, how you analyse prospective candidates, who's involved in that, the interview process, what that looks like.
Fairly simple process, I suppose. We do have a pretty cool system called Bamboo that we use to manage our candidates, but any candidate comes to us via recruiter or directly. Their details get stored into our system Bamboo. We review the candidate's CV. It's fairly standard stuff. If we've had a recruiter who's spoken to them, I think that's kind of a nice thing to do first before we look at their CV. Just get a feel for kind of what you guys are thinking and where they're positioned. Usually there's a sort of fairly accurate assessment of where they are in terms of their ability. And then, of course, just kind of getting a feel for whether they're wanting full-time remote or whether they can move to Manchester or whether they want to do a hybrid sort of arrangement. Nothing's necessarily off the table, although we are trying to build a studio, so I would say that it's ideal if people can be at the studio. Once we've kind of done an assessment on the CV, very simple, invite to a meeting. Our interviews take about an hour. And in that there's kind of three clear parts of that meeting. There's kind of introduction to us, and the candidate takes us through their CV. We have some technical and some perhaps soft skill questions that we ask them, and then we ask the candidate to ask us questions. It's just as much an interview for the candidate to us as it is for us interviewing them.
I totally agree with that, and that's something I mention to everyone we send through to interviews, because there's so many options out there. You've got to be sure that your studio is the right one for them as much as they're the right candidate for you.
100%, and we don't want people that are going to come along and then a couple of months later leave. That doesn't help anybody. So actually doing that sort of diligence right there and then is much better for everybody concerned, really. So so once we've had that, sometimes that's enough. That one interview sometimes we've just managed to get through enough questions. We've had enough conversation. We've talked about some of the project stuff that we're up to. If we've been able to get them to sign an NDA before that, then we've been able to talk to them very specifically about who we're working with. Perhaps not the project though. We don't talk about projects with anybody. We'll give them a sense, a first-person shooter, third-person shooter, racing game, battle royale, whatever it might be. And if it's enough, great. We'll kind of go away. We have a scale. We have a sort of tiered system for where we think they might be. So if they're a senior programmer level 3 or something like that, we have a pay scale, which is we'll place them inside that tolerance or that range, and we'll make an offer. If we feel like we need more time, then we'll invite them back for another half an hour at some point. And we have in the past done meetings where we've invited people from the studio in as well. So not just the co-dev studio. So we have done that in the past as well, where we've seen somebody and said, look, this guy's perfect for you. Perhaps they haven't said that they thought they need someone like this yet, but Stephen's got enough experience to say, this is coming down the road. We need to think about this sooner rather than later. Also, we have people from our studio sitting on those. So Hannah's sitting on interviews before, Phil, Lee. These are kind of senior engineers who have a particular kind of special power, which is obviously useful if they're kind of speaking to somebody in the same sort of language. So if we need an extra half an hour, we'll get people on a Teams meeting or something. And then if everybody's happy, then we'll make an offer. And if the offer's accepted, we'll agree a date to start. And we'll get the ball rolling. UK contracts, no problem. That's fairly standard stuff for us. If we've had to look a bit further afield, and we have got a couple of Europeans in our studio, so we've got a guy in Portugal, a guy in France, and actually now a guy in Air. So that's a slightly slower process because we have to get local lawyers involved and local payroll and get registered for tax purposes in that country. But it just takes time, and most people are kind of, recognise that they're the first Portuguese person in the studio, and we have to kind of be diligent and compliant.
I suppose one other thing on the recruitment process is remote working. And you mentioned the hybrid option, and we spoke last week about possibilities, because I'm behind what you say. You're building a studio, you want people to be there and feel part of Nequinox and what they're building, but then you have other studios who are making quite inflammatory comments on social media saying, well, if you don't offer fully remote, we'll just steal your best talent. So what's the long-term view on that? Where do you see it going? Or is it always just going to stick to the hybrid and on-site, or will it be more remote going forward?
I think we're flexible, but at the same time, I also think the last 18 months have proved that to people that they can do remote. That doesn't necessarily mean it's a good thing for everybody. I think some people that have said to us that they want to do full-time remote, I'm concerned about that. There's some aspects are positive, and it's actually trying to establish which parts of remote working are the attractive parts. Is it really working from home? Is that the thing that you're really, really loving, or is it not doing the commute, or is it or is it being able to kind of put your tea on at 5:30 and eat it in 15 minutes when you've just finished? What is it about remote working that you're actually enjoying? Because I think once we get to the bottom of that, I think that's when we can start to really lean into that kind of hybrid idea.
But you're thinking about it. You're thinking of it logically rather than just saying yes or no.
We have people who will be 100% remote going forward. That's something that we've agreed with them up front. Some people are a bit further away. It's not really easy to commute from Edinburgh or sort of the other side of Sheffield. So I think in some ways, we've set a precedent that we have got people that are remote, but we have got local people as well who want to be in the studio, and this is good as well. Having said that, because we've grown quite so quickly and over the last year, the studio is not actually big enough for everybody. So at some point in the next 12 months, there is a good chance that we'll be having to either find more space somehow. So yeah, we'll see how that goes.
It sounds like you've got a lot of exciting stuff on the horizon and currently at the moment. So I'm looking forward to seeing what comes out of it all. But yeah, thank you very much for joining us on our podcast today.
No problem.
It's been an absolute pleasure. If you are interested in working with Nequinox, please do check out the active roles on our website at Aardvark Swift. But until next time, thank you for listening. Cheers.